Ya casi nos vamos en... ¿Es bueno?
Good afternoon. Welcome to our session that is part of our 13th International Conference for Teachers of English, New Perspectives in TEFL in the Post-Pandemic Era. It is an honor for me to welcome you to this conference by a dearest colleague of the faculty or our department. In this case, I want to present to you Tomas Monge Honduras. For over 16 years, Tomas has been teaching English in bilingual institutions in the morning and an English academy for adults and university in the evening. He graduated from Normal Mixta Pedro Nufio as an elementary teacher, and he then earned a bachelor's degree as a high school English teacher from Universidad Pedagógica Nacional Francisco Morazán. And now he holds a master's degree in education, center organization and management, and another master's degree in project management. He was a school language department coordinator for 2 years, and he has been the coordinator of UPNFM's network of English level teachers for 2.5 years. And today, he's the current vice president of the International Conference for Teachers of English. Mr. Monge is highly interested in neuroeducation and psycholinguistics as meaningful resources of knowledge that can help teachers develop new techniques and strategies to provide broader and more innovative ways of brain stimuli for effective language learning and acquisition. So it's an honor for me to present Mr. Tomas Monge with his conference, Neuroeducation Synaptic Processes in Language Learning. Tomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Thanks a lot. It's a bigger honor for me to be introduced by you. I must say that I'm 35 years old. I'm not. I feel very old when I listen to all that. I have shared with you a link to nearpod.com, and I will share with you as well a 5-character code, because on that link, they will ask you to punch in that code in order to join my presentation. It's going to be somehow interactive. So just let me share my screen while you join my session. Let me know if you can see the website and if you can punch in. Two people have joined, Dora Garcia and Karen Viana. Perfect. If you have two devices, I recommend using both of them. One for the Zoom session and the other one for the Nearpod session, because I'm going to be jumping screens a lot. And maybe it's going to be annoying. So you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Let's start. Neuroeducation. Let me see if I can. 6 people are connected. We're going to start with you. Can you see on your Nearpod screen, does the presentation move along? Just wondering. Yeah, okay. So the first activity that we have, please draw a neuron. Neuron, easy one. Who doesn't know how to draw a neuron? Come on, give it a try. Don't Google it. Just bring it down from your mind. Activity starting right now. You have 1 minute, by the way, no pressure. Look at those artistic beauties. If you don't connect to Nearpod and punch in the code, you won't have the chance to show us your artistic skills and answers. Look at that. I like Rosa's neuron. By the way, Nearpod is free. You just sign up and create a profile and you can create your presentations. It's very limited. That's why I didn't include a lot of the pictures I'm going to show today on it, because it doesn't allow you to make big presentations. Time's up. We have these drawings. Look at that. So your class can see the drawings. Look at Brenna's neuron. It's beautiful. Dora colored her neuron. Wow. Look at Genesis's neuron. This is a very well-connected neuron. This person's neuron has been on a lot of repetition. So why do I ask you to draw a neuron? Well, because teachers should know neurons, right? But there's not a lot of neurobiological study in our language teaching programs. And this happens all around the world, not only in Honduras. So if you see a neuron, this is a neuron, by the way, very similar to yours. You have the cell body, right? And then the whole neuron has, it's a membrane. That's a membrane. So we have the dendrites, which are all these branches that you can see on this part of the neuron. And they branch out. It's limitless. Branches are millions of branches. And this is just a neuron. And we have 100 billion neurons, right? So look at that. We have the axon. The axon is this long part of the neuron. And these are the terminals, right? So at the end of the axon, we have terminals, and these terminals connect with other neurons via the dendrites. So it's an endless wiring of dendrites, axons, dendrites, axons, dendrites, axons. But we're going to go deeper into neurobiology in order to understand why this is important for language learning and language teaching. Look at this. We have another picture. Wait, this. Okay. This is another picture that I got of a neuron, because it is very important to understand that communication happens thanks to very important parts of the neuron. For example, just let me find it right here, because I have it right here. The myelin, this is a type of myelin. It's a type of fat that gets around the axon, and it is divided by nodes. This is a node, this is another node, this is another node, and this is like an insulator. So when the electrical impulses travel via the axon, just to move along to some other neurons, the myelin in here insulates the electrical signal, so it travels faster and it doesn't go anywhere else. So it's an insulator, and the message travels from node to node, like it comes here and bzz, 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 special sounds included, until it reaches the terminals, right? We're talking about nanoseconds. A nanosecond is like 100 billionth part of a minute, something like that. Is a very, very small time in which, just picture yourselves touching something boiling and reacting immediately, right? How long does that reaction take? It's very fast. The electrical current inside your body, from neuron to neuron, from nerve cell to nerve cell, is even faster. So this is the beginning of our topic. Look at that, another type of drawing. So you can see the dendrites. These are the myelin sheaths and the nodes in between them. And these are the axon terminals, right? And this is the whole axon complete. And this is the cell body. So we're going to, oops, this is not right now. Let's go back to our Nearpod so we can move on, because we can classify neurons according to their structure. Some neurons are called multipolar because they have lots of collecting fibers, lots of dendrites. They have a lot of branches, right, on the collecting part. And they have only one sending out fiber, one axon, many dendrites. One axon, many dendrites. Bipolar neurons, I swear, these don't have anything to do with our X's. They have one collecting fiber and one sending out fiber. So only one dendrite and only one axon, right? Not multiple branches on the dendrites. This is a bipolar neuron. And then unipolar neurons, they have, the main body of the cell is like set aside. It's separated from the axon and the dendrite pole. I'm going to show you, I have them right here. This is a multipolar neuron. Just let me close this one. Multipolar neuron. This is the cell body. So it depends on the number of poles that you have around the cell body. If you can see, we have several poles. We have 5, and then 1 pole for the axon. So several dendrite poles and 1 pole for the axon. Then we have a bipolar neuron. We just have the dendrites and the axon, right? But the cell body is in here. It's in the middle. I want you to check that out because we have a unipolar neuron in which the cell body is kind of sitting aside. It's not in the middle, it sits aside. So these are types of neurons according to their structure: multipolar, bipolar, and unipolar, right? We find them in the central nervous system, right, which is the brain and the spinal cord. And then the peripheral nervous system has different types of neurons. Probably bipolar neurons are more on the peripheral nervous system because they need to be on the sensory nerve cells because they need to be faster. And multipolar will be on the central nervous system because this has to do with speaking and more complex abilities. Now, according to their function, we can classify neurons in sensory neurons. I just mentioned them a few seconds ago. They collect information from the senses, obviously, right? So everything we see, colors, depth, size, everything that we can see and perceive through our eyes, through our nose, the sense of smell, through our ears, sounds, words, everything through our touch, right? And these are sensory neurons. They collect the information and they send it to the central nervous system. Then we have motor neurons, which are the ones that send the signals away from the central nervous system, carrying orders out to the rest of the body. So I perceive something and through the sensory neurons, and then my motor neurons send a message back so I can react, maybe move my muscles, ask my glands to produce something, and so on and so forth. And then we have the interneurons, which are like kind in the middle, in between, because they collect the signals from the sensory neurons and they decide whether or not to send it to the motor neurons. They are kind of the decision makers, right? That assess what the senses are perceiving and what the body should do according to that information. Imagine how complex this is. It's not an easy process. Our body is probably the most amazing machine in the universe, right? Because it's crazy. It's like a mini universe on its own. Since I am such a great teacher, my former students know me, I have questions for you. Please pair up the information. Maybe I'm giving you the copy. You have 2 minutes to pair up the types of neurons. I hope the time is running on your screen too. Yeah, cool. "50 seconds, no pressure. We're getting results here. They're public. Why am I not surprised with these results? 6 out of 6, Brenna Woods. I'm back in the classroom again. We were classmates. I need to mention that. So competitive, Brenna, come on. Hector Cruz, 6 out of 6, very good. Karen Viana. Time's up. So here we go. The ones that collect info from the senses, sensory. The ones that send signals away to other parts of the body, motor. And the ones who decide whether or not to interpret and send, interneurons. These are only in the central nervous system. You won't find them in the peripheral system, like outside the central nervous system, because they're decision makers. So they must be within the central nervous system. And then according to their structure, we have multipolar, lots of collecting fibers, bipolar, one collecting fiber, and one sending out fiber, one axon, and unipolar, in which the main body is set aside. With this, we're moving on to better activities. We're talking about communication now. We know the structure of the body of a neuron. Yes, dendrites collect information, the cell body, the processing center, and then the axon, the pole that takes the signals away and into other neurons. Three simple parts. And let's talk about communication. How do neurons communicate? Record a voice note explaining it. I won't play them all. I might choose Brenna's only, maybe. No, I'm kidding. But record a voice note. Have fun. 45 seconds, by the way. First, to upload her voice note. Sorry, Brenna. Time's up. Let's see. Oh, you're
I
so...
think maybe it's gonna be difficult because of Zoom permissions and microphones.
Oh, okay. The microphone is concentrated in your Zoom usage. Hector typed, they communicate by sensors. Can I play your voice note, Brenna? Yeah, okay. Let me see if I can.
I think neurons communicate with the use of electric relays. I don't know.
Well, yes. It's electrical currents. We have communication, action potential. That's how we call it. Action potential is an electrical signal that travels along the surface of a neuron's membrane. So if you remember look at the structural differences. I skipped this one. These cameras get on the way. Unipolar, bipolar, pseudo-unipolar, which is the one with the body aside, and multipolar. So I was telling you, if you remember the structure of the neuron, so the action potential moves along the neuron, right? It's electrical signals that move along the neuron. But there's one issue here. Neurons don't really touch. That's crazy. Neurons never touch, right? The axons terminals in here get really, really close to the dendrites of other neurons. When they make a connection, they get really, really close, but they never get to touch each other. So the action potential that we're talking about, the electrical signal, cannot move, cannot always move. There are some neurons that communicate electrically, yes, but we need neurotransmitters for normal neuron communication, right? These are chemical signals. We're talking about chemicals, right, that travel from neuron to neuron. The axon terminals release the neurotransmitters, and then the dendrites of the other neurons pick them up. How does this happen? There's a nanoscopic gap that remains between neuron and neuron. I was telling you about it. And it's between 20 to 30 nanometers. If you take a meter and you divide it by 100, you have centimeters. You divide it by 1,000, you have millimeters, right? Then you have micrometers, microscopes, and then these are nanometers. It's really small. So we're talking about a gap, or a cleft. A cleft in Spanish is hendidura, I think. So it's 1,000 millionth of the meter. You have to divide 1 meter in 1 billion, right? So it's 1 billion of a meter. It's the billionth part of the meter. So there's always a separation, 20 to 30 nanometers between neuron and neuron, right? That's what we call the synaptic cleft or the synapse, right? The synapse. I'm going to show you another picture. Where's the synapse? I have 3 pictures. Let's start with this one. I'll close this one. I'm sorry. Look at that. This is, well, the cell body and the dendrites, right? So this is the axon, and the axon terminals are connected to other neurons probably, and the connection looks like this. They're not touching. They're very, very close, but they're not touching. So in the axon terminals, you find some vessels. Let me see. I have a lot of notes. And this is the synaptic cleft. Let me see. I just want to give you the right name because I don't want to make it up. It's vesicles, synaptic vesicles. These are vesicles, right? And they are thin-walled sacs of fluids, let's call it like that. And these are the neurotransmitters. This is very important for education because depending on the impulses that we get, depending on the signals that we pick up through the senses, it's the type of electrical signal that we're going to get into our brain. And the cell body as a processing center is going to interpret those messages, and it's going to send out a signal through the axon, and it's going to give the order to release neurotransmitters. But depending on the impulse, depending on the stimulation that we get, right? The type of stimulus that we get is the type of neurotransmitter that we're going to release. We have some neurotransmitters that are pro-education. Yes, we're learning. And we have some neurotransmitters that are inhibitors. They block learning, right? So as teachers, I don't know about you, but I think this is fascinating because we need to be aware of this, right? They communicate via synapses. Yes, correct. This is what we call synapse, right? The synaptic connection, okay? Connections don't just happen. They need stimuli, constant stimuli, okay? Repetition in order to tell neurons, hey, you need to connect because I need to speak English. I need to speak fluently. I need to speak fast and clear. I need to pronounce sounds clearly, chunk words, right? I need to sound convincing. I need to persuade. I need to teach. I need to learn. I need to play the guitar. I need to drive a manual car. I need to do any ability that you want to think about. Any ability is learned via synaptic connections. So it's not just about reading the theory for an ability, which is very important. It is not just about repeating the same thing over and over to get the ability. It's a combination of both, right? It's a combination of a lot of things that we're going to keep talking about. So learning can be effective. So keep in mind the dendrites, right? Pick up the signals, take them into the cell body processing center. The processing center says, all right, we have to do this. And we have to send out this signal via the axon and into the terminals, and we have to release these neurotransmitters, right? Or only this one, or maybe some of them, or all of them. I don't know. It depends. So, are we good so far? Let's see. We have communication. We're talking about 4 bases for learning consolidation. In our classes, when we plan our lessons, we're English teachers, we're language teachers. What do we need to include in our lesson plans? If you're copy pasting your lesson plans, that's mediocrity at its best, right? Don't even plan the lesson copy pasting. Why do you need it? It didn't come out of your talent, right? You need to be a magician in education. You're in charge of a group of students. Imagine each student has 100 billion neurons waiting for you to stimulate that, right? To make connections happen, to make neurotransmitters be released. And then comes the teacher with the boring face, with the miserable, feeling into the class. Or, hi guys, another day. Open your book on page 59 and start copying the first paragraph, please. When you have it ready, bring it to me. And then I go and sit down and just, right? How many classes did we get like that when we were studying, right? How many teachers were angry when you came to the classroom, right? Threatening, this presence that made you feel afraid, scared, humiliated, anxious, nervous, stomach sick, right? How many teachers didn't stimulate your neurons, right? Education is all about stimulating. It's about the different types of stimuli that you bring into the classroom. That's why we plan lessons. So you have a chance to get a warm-up. What do I do to access prior knowledge, right? Novelty. Look at the first base of, this is like a pillar of education. Novelty, right? This doesn't mean that we're clowns and every day we have to bring novelty into our lessons, or that everything has to be brand new and shocking. And not really. We need routines. Imagine a pilot on a plane saying, well, passengers, welcome into my flight. Today we're going to break the routine, right? Don't buckle your seatbelts. I'm going to go backwards and not, you see, but routine. We need structure. We need a routine. We need discipline. Don't get me wrong. But since you're teaching for a whole year, one grade or one class in high school, there's a bunch of information that you have to bring into the class. Try to bring novelty into your classroom somehow, sometimes, right? Highlight important ideas in a remarkable way. Imagine your teacher being dressed as a character of any story you're reading, right? But really dressed, not like I just put a hat on, like going crazy with it. Asking them to create a game or I don't know, breaking the routine sometimes and bringing novelty, awe, right? Amazement, surprise. That's going to help. I'm going to mention some neurotransmitters later on that are very important for education. I'm just checking the time so I can do everything I have planned. Emotion. This is another pillar of education, right? Yes, you bring novelty. Okay. You surprise the students every now and then, but bring emotion as well. Make them feel respected, make them feel accepted, right? Acknowledge their identity. They're not the same. They're not the same among them, and they're not the same as you. They will be different from you. Why does that bother you? Why do you want them to be uniform, like homogeneous? Classes are heterogeneous. Everybody's different. Make everybody feel accepted for who they are, right? Make them feel loved. I find it funny, and I hope you understand why I'm saying this, but I find it funny when I listen to teachers say, they don't pay me to love my students. I'm like, seriously, are you saying that? Are you saying that you would like to work in a profession in which they pay you to love people? I think there's a profession for that. They won't pay you to love them. Come on. You love them because you're human, because you interact with them. Who doesn't love interacting with people, right? If you don't love the people you interact with, if you don't love the interaction, if you don't love making everybody feel accepted, liked, belonging, right? You shouldn't be a teacher, really, because there must be an emotional aspect in classes. Once again, I'm going to mention neurotransmitters in a few minutes that connect to all these four bases. All right. Repetition. I usually and constantly disagree with schools that say we finished a whole book and we have 20 units, so we do 3 or 4 units per partial, right? We do 5 units per partial. No matter what, the teacher has to finish them, so the parents are happy that the book got used. If you're bringing new concepts and new concepts and new concepts and new concepts every day, there's no room for repetition. Repetition is key. It's one of the most crucial aspects of synapses, right? Synaptic connections. No repetition, no synaptic connection. Okay, tell me about it that I have memorized some of Eminem's songs, right? You don't memorize Eminem in one sitting, right? It's been years repeating the same verse over and over, right? It's crazy. So that happens in the classroom. You bring the verb to be one day, but you never bring it again, because then you have to go to the simple present, and then the negative, and then the questions, and then the past, and then right, and then the progressive, and then the students get mixed up and they don't remember the verb to be because you didn't give them a chance to repeat, to go over some exercises, right? In the English levels at UPN, we use a book that has a platform, and students are constantly asking me, should I repeat the exercises? Man, if you got a 35 on the first result in this exercise, you can do it again so you can improve it. If you got a 70% on the second chance, do it again until you reach 100. And even so, when you reached 100 in every exercise, I would do them again just to make sure I'm still getting 100. Connections are made, right? It's efficiency. So should you repeat the exercises that you already did? Yes, all the time. Keep repeating, because repetition is what gives you fluency, a beautiful pronunciation, and a nice accent, right? Rich vocabulary, lots of idioms, right? So repetition. Association. We cannot learn new concepts if we don't have something else to link them to. All right. Imagine when you're building a tent, okay, and you stick the tent hooks on the floor, right? If you have been working on concepts previously, whenever you bring a new concept, you have to go back to those old concepts and try to find a way in which you link the wagons and you make a train, all right? Because if you're just bringing new concepts and you never associate them with old concepts, learning is segmented, it's fragmented, it's broken, right? That's why students have notions of some topics, but they never get the whole picture, right? Because we didn't do a good job associating concepts and ideas. So I want you to see the graph bars, and I want you to pay attention to the balance. None of them is higher than the rest, because if I bring novelty all the time and everything is new, then I fail in association. I'm never linking to old concepts, and there's no repetition because everything is new every day. So novelty cannot go up like crazy. Not everything can be new every day. You need structure, you need routines. I already said it, right? If everything is emotional, right, then you start getting disagreements and arguments and, you know, people crying, people hugging, scandals. It's no emotion. It's limited. I'm not saying go and hug your students. When I say love your students, it's, you know, make them laugh, Make them feel accepted. Discipline them, but don't threaten them, right? Don't make them feel afraid of you. That's what I'm saying, all right? So balance, right? Let's talk about important neurotransmitters. Take dopamine, for example. Dopamine is one of the most important neurotransmitters because it activates the reward system. It makes you feel good. It gives you pleasure, right? When you eat that piece of chocolate and you start feeling good, they say chocolate gives you the same feeling as kissing. I don't know. I've never kissed. So we have pleasure, reward system. It empowers you. It gives you emotional responses. Look at that. This is fully emotional. It makes you feel good about achievement. If you got 100 in an exercise, you get dopamine, right? If your teacher says, very good, Rosa, very good, Fabiola, you were awesome in this presentation. Nevertheless, I have a few observations, but the teacher made you feel good. But if the teacher has that like disgust face, like, sit down. Where's the dopamine? It's the opposite, right? It's the opposite. So achievement, it constantly motivates you to increase your goal bar, all right, your standards. You got it. You achieved something, then you're motivated and you said, nah, I want to achieve this now. And then I want to go up, and then I want to go up, thanks to dopamine. So teachers, you must make sure that you help students release dopamine with curiosity, sparking curiosity, right? Asking them to go and find out, to discover, okay, dopamine, reward system. If you have low amounts of dopamine, you have low interest. You have low attention levels, low engagement, no enjoyment, no excitement, no retention of information. So in a few words, boring lessons that don't make you feel curious and try to want to discover something, boring lessons will keep low interest. It's obvious, right? And then we blame it on the students. They're never motivated, they're never engaging in my lessons, and it's everything the students' fault. Try to think about your teaching, right? Because an exciting lesson is always engaging. I'll repeat it. An exciting lesson is always engaging. That's why the best teachers are always remembered for the rest of your life, because you never forget how they made you feel like excited, how they brought the topics into the class, and how they made people just engage and make groups and participate, right? A lot of dopamine was involved in that. Then we have another neurotransmitter. It's serotonin. This is an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Remember, we have inhibitory neurotransmitters, they block things, and we have excitatory, they enable, right? They're opposites. So in the case of serotonin, it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter that keeps a stable mood, right? It balances excessive excitatory neurotransmitters. You don't want a lot of dopamine in the class, right? The dopamine is related to addiction. When you're scrolling down social network for 3 hours and you don't realize it, it's your dopamine, right? It's your need of dopamine because you want to see likes and you want to see things that make you feel good. So we need a little bit of serotonin in the class because we need to balance that out. We don't want crazy students, right? Excessively firing dopamine in the brain. So high levels of serotonin give a strong immune system. They give you good sleep. This is the hormone or the neurotransmitter that helps you go to sleep, right? It gives you a sense of belonging to a group, and it gives you good relationships within the group. And some scientists agree that this might be the leadership chemical, right? Because it helps you have this feeling of allegiance, loyalty, acceptance, organizational cohesion. So these groups of professionals and students that are always fighting and, just pushing each other and betraying each other, they have really low levels of serotonin. All right. So let's try to improve our sense of belonging in the class. Let's try to not be the teachers that make students feel excluded or humiliated or as if they are not part of the group. Monge again, all the time, Monge, like, right? You never shut up, Monge. Come on, give us a break. It's like you're pushing Monge away of the group. It might be a true story though. I don't know this, Monge. So, serotonin, leadership chemical, allegiance, loyalty, dopamine, excitement, pleasure, right? Achievement. Then we have norepinephrine. Norepinephrine. This is, let's think about epinephrine, which is adrenaline. Norepinephrine is also called noradrenaline. It's like a type of adrenaline. Let's say they're cousins, right? This is an excitatory neurotransmitter, and it increases the blood flow to your brain. We need a lot of blood in the brain for it to operate correctly. So it helps you be alert, pay attention to your surroundings, right? Two things that are crucial in education. You need to be alert, and you need to pay attention to your surroundings. Listen to the teacher. How do we help students produce norepinephrine? Just bring activities that involve risk, right? But I'm not talking about going into a volcano, right, and pushing students out. It would be a good idea sometimes, but no, not physical risk necessarily, like Kahoot. Think about Kahoot. That feeling of having 4 teams, 1 question, 10 seconds, 4 options, and the first one gets the biggest amount of points, right? Hurry up. What is the answer? It's norepinephrine is flowing crazily in those brains because there's risk, there's challenge, there's competition, right? So just remember norepinephrine as an excitatory neurotransmitter that helps students be alert and pay attention, right? If there's a lot of excitement and challenge and competition, you probably have dopamine. Students are happy to. They're collaborating, they're cooperating with each other. Learning is beautiful, right? They're not anxious, they're not nervous, they're not scared. Nothing negative is happening, hopefully, right? So norepinephrine. Then we have cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone or a neurotransmitter that is released in response to stress, right? In response to stress. So it's it works with adrenaline. They work together. Imagine an emergency, a very dangerous situation. Adrenaline makes you run, makes you jump, makes you do things that you wouldn't normally do because you're overly excited in order to help you survive, right? It's a survival neurotransmitter. So cortisol comes into the picture when adrenaline it's going crazy, because cortisol helps you keep memories, right? Since everything is crazy, right? You need to keep memories of what's happening. Cortisol helps you create memories, but if it's too high, it interferes with memory, and it gives you a lower set of immune functions. So you get sick easily. So students who are usually under a lot of stress, again, I mentioned cortisol to remind you that if you are threatening, your students are going to be nervous and afraid and threatened. So there's a lot of cortisol, more than necessary. And this is connected to the affective filter, Krashen's affective filter, right? The higher the filter, the lower the learning, because they're too nervous, they're not learning, they're not memorizing. The lower the filter, the more relaxed the students are, the less cortisol they have, just the right amount, okay? Because they feel safe. Your job is to make students feel safe. Not a lot of cortisol. Be careful with cortisol because you might be in a state of alertness constantly. Every day you're stressed, and that kicks up your high blood pressure and a lot of health issues like diabetes and, you know, all these things that are really bad. So try to keep your cortisol down. Oxytocin, I'm almost finishing. Oxytocin creates intimacy, trust, strong bonds, right? Social interactions that are better and stronger. It modulates fear, anxiety. It is like an antidepressant. It has these antidepressant-like effects. So this is oxytocin. Being kind is good enough to help oxytocin flow. And then enkephalins and endorphins, they modulate stress, pain, and they produce the feeling of being relaxed and calm. Endorphins are crucial in education. How do you help release them? Humor, laughter, right? Exercise, physical movement, right? So your kinesthetic students are going to thank you if you bring a lot of physical activities, and then you're going to make them keep endorphins flowing. So what is your job in the classroom? Bring new ideas and make them stand out eventually, not every day. Sometimes when you feel it's necessary, just readjust your teaching, right? Break your routine. Provide multisensory learning. Multisensory. Students who sing should be allowed to sing. Students who know how to design clothes. It's crazy, but we have students who are good designers. Make them design clothes. Make them design something like a model of a building, whatever they want to design, right? Make them design something on the computer, like a logo or whatever, and explain it. That's a great oral or presentation material, right? Students who dance can perform physically in front of the class and then explain what they were feeling and whatever, right? Painters, artists, students like me, I'm good linguistically. I'm not good at dancing or singing. I'm not artistic, but linguistically, I'm very strong. If you've asked me to give a speech, I'll be happy, right? But bring multisensory learning into a classroom. Do not stick to the reading every day and to the exercises every day and to the old stuff that we know. Emotions are the things that glue concepts and they stick them together, and ideas that they make them connect. Emotions make you feel good and accepted, and learning is going to remain longer. It's going to be deeper. Learning is going to be deeper and more intrinsic. And then provide organization, provide chunking, okay? Chunk your lessons, chunk your materials. Active, playful learning, laugh, enjoy your job. Have students laugh, all right? Even when they laugh at you, there's learning for us in there. We can deal with that positively, all right? And try to discipline those students in a positive way, okay? Not threatening them. Storytelling is very important in any subject, in any grade. If you bring stories to introduce a lesson, they're going to stay longer and deeper because storytelling is easier to memorize. And then anchoring, association. You need anchors. You need the tent hooks on the ground. That's why we have the term scaffolding in education, because you bring a concept and then you connect it to another one and then you build a scaffold, right? In Spanish, we call it andamio. It's a structure, it's construction. So visual and physical stimulus or stimuli helps anchoring. You need to have charts, posters, word maps, concepts, word walls, pictures, everything that you can put up in the classroom. It's not decoration, it's anchors, it's association. When you don't need it anymore, you bring it down and then you paste something new and you're renovating every month, every partial, every time you need it. I don't know. So this is my presentation, neuroeducation. It's not only about teaching, it's not only about the book, it's not only about teaching a language and helping students speak. Think about their neurons. Think about dendrites picking up signals, sending it to the body of the cell and through the axon. to connect with other neurons. When you have millions of connections, the brain changes in shape, the brain changes in structure, and that's how you can speak English. You can speak another language and have many abilities thanks to physical structures in your brain that are created through neuron connection. Every time you repeat, you connect. During the day, you get stimuli, and at night, when you sleep, the brain is awake. The brain is getting rid of everything that is not relevant because it's not connected to emotions, because it wasn't repeated enough times. So the brain gets rid of it because the brain is an effective energy using organ. So if I don't need it, don't use it, you lose it, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. And the brain recreates those activities, those repetitions. When you're sleeping, it's crazy, but the brain is like recreating like hundreds of times the same thing. So when I was singing Eminem, like Mom Spaghetti, he's nervous, but on the surface, it looks calm and ready to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting what he wrote down. The whole crowd goes all out. Every time I did it, when I was sleeping, my brain was recreating those verses. And when I woke up in the morning, I sounded better. I could put words together for longer, right? It was thanks to what my brain was doing at night. So the hours of sleep are also important. If you're not sleeping enough, your stimuli during the day is not getting enough time to be consolidated. So sleeping is very important. Also for physical gains when you go to the gym. Some people go to the gym and kill themselves in there. They don't sleep enough. So the body doesn't grow. This is it. Thanks for your attention. Boom.
Well, let's give Mr. Monge a round of applause, virtual applause, right? And I want to just share with you, I don't know if you've seen the chat, but we have a lot of comments from Mr. Medina saying nobody wants to be in a place where they don't feel welcome or feel good. As professors, we must understand to make students feel great. Karen Diana was asking questions about the different hormones we were talking about.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, I saw a comment saying that sometimes I forget the importance of repetition in my classes. Thank you for pointing it out. This comes from Dora Elizabeth. And well, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. If not, I think this conference has not only spiked some type of interest in learning more about the brain, but also it has been a refresh for us that we're teachers to remember how important it is to go through these 4 pillars or elements that you were talking about in terms of stimuli and repetition. And as others were saying in the chat, you know, that it's important for us to always remember that we have to be engaging our students at all moments. I think you have made a great impression on all of our participants. And if there are no other questions, then I think we're ready to move on. I encourage you to continue to the other sessions that we have available. And thank you, Mr. Monge, once again for such a delightful time.
Thank you all. See you later. Thanks for coming.